Thank you, and good morning all. This is a meeting of the Norfolk District Council's licensing committee, and today we're going to be at this meeting this morning. We'll talk about an application for Barn Drift in Cley. But first of all, we'll start by introductions. I'm Councillor Eric Vardy. I'll be chairing this committee, and I'll ask.
My name is Councillor Harry Blathwaite and I represent Hickling Ward. Thank you.
Councillor Porter representing Bacton Ward.
Joe, please.
I'm Jo Fenner. I'm the legal advisor to the committee today.
Thank you. I'll just go from my right to Councillor Holliday.
I'm Councillor Holliday. I'm ward member for Coastal Ward, which includes Cley. And Parish Chair for Cley Parish Council.
My name's Anna Ryan. I'm the Director of Phoenix Events East Limited Private Security Company in Norwich.
My name's Alice Atkinson and I run Barn Drift and the surrounding farm at Cley.
Gentlemen.
My name's Gary Hughes. I'm the Environmental Protection Officer for North Norfolk District Council.
I'm Jeff Cheek, Licensed Officer for North Norfolk District Council.
Lauren Gregory, Democratic Services.
Thank you all for the introductions. Just to confirm that we're not expecting a fire alarm this morning, so you can join me in the rush should one go off. But seriously, we'll make our way down to the car park at the front. I request that all mobile phones are switched off. They do interfere if they go off. So item 2 is apologies for absence. Lauren, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies for absence have been received from our licensing officer, Nikki Davison. We have the Senior Public Protection Officer, Jeff Duke, present and attendance to speak to the officer's report.
Thank you. Item 3, items of urgent business. There's been none received there. Item 4, declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest, members? Thank you. So we're coming on to the main body of the agenda, item 5, which is an application by Barn Drift Cley. So before I start this, I just have to say some words. I confirm that the committee has been convened to consider the application for a new premises licence at Barn Drift Cley next to the sea. The subcommittee is sitting to consider matters under the Licensing Act 2003. Right. So I'm asking you to speak to just let us know the capacity in which you're speaking today.
I'm speaking as Parish Chair and Ward Member. Chairman, thank you.
I am, pardon me, speaking as the operations manager of the company that provides private security to weddings and events at Barn Drift.
I'm speaking as the owner and operator of Barn Drift.
I'm speaking as the Environmental Protection Officer, looking at the potential effects of any noise on local residents.
Thank you. So just for today, to give some clarity as to the timings and things like this important. Nobody wants to be talking for a couple of hours on this matter. So I'm limiting each speaker to about 15 minutes to make their representations. That is at my discretion, so I can either extend or shorten that if I feel appropriate. So I'm now going to ask our legal advisor, please, to explain the procedure of the meeting as on the agenda. So please, Jo.
Thank you, Chair. First off, before I forget, as we go through, anybody who wishes to ask a question or speak needs to do so through the chair, please. So it's to avoid the kind of unpleasantness that can arise through like cross-examination type questions. So everything goes via the chair, please, if at all possible. So in terms of our order for the day, this is done so that everybody gets an appropriate opportunity to present their case. And those that wish to ask appropriate questions can do so. So in the first instance, the licensing officer will outline the application and the committee then ask questions of the licensing officer with regards to that report. After the committee, all other parties may have the opportunity to ask any questions. It is just at that stage of what's been outlined in the report. After that, it's we move on to the presentation of case and submission from parties, and that's in the following order: the applicant in the first instance, then any responsible authorities, and then other persons after that. And each party will be invited to set out their case, to call any witnesses they may have in support, to introduce any documentary evidence in support of their case. And that's provided it's all been that's been provided to the council in advance, and respond to any questions asked of them by the members of the licensing committee. At the subcommittee and chair's discretion, each party may ask questions of other parties by directing them through the chair. The subcommittee shall have absolute discretion to restrict the number of witnesses and documents that any party can introduce, all the time spent on submissions or oral evidence, and that's to ensure the proper running of this hearing. Where there's a number of people with similar representations, spokesperson may be chosen. Any witnesses that any party call that have not previously been notified to the council shall only be allowed with consent of all other parties at the hearing, and the subcommittee shall have sole discretion to refuse or allow any witnesses to be heard, even where that consent of the other parties have been given. And in reaching the decision, the subcommittee may consider any circumstances they believe to be relevant and will have regard to the relevance of the evidence to the matters before the committee. Any documents that the party is seeking to adduce that have not been previously notified to the council in advance of the hearing will only be allowed with consent of all the other parties at the hearing, and with the permission of the subcommittee. After everybody has had the opportunity to present their case, the next, it will be closing submissions. So each party will have 5 minutes to provide a summary of their case. I will say it's not the opportunity for introducing further evidence, so it's just a summary of what you've presented already. The order of the day for that will be in the responsible authority in the first instance, then any other persons, the licensing officer, and lastly, the applicant will get their final say. At the end of the closing submissions, it may be that I, as the legal advisor, will have some comments with regarding points of clarification, and then after that, members will retire to make their decision. I'm not going to go through all of the gumph there. It's set out in the committee. Once they've made a decision, they'll come back and we'll reconvene the meeting, and you'll be advised of the decision. It may be that you won't be provided on this day with a full note of the decision, with all the reasons setting that out. That we have 5 days to provide that. So it just saves a bit of time if we're not waiting for that full note to be written up, particularly as I know there's people with other commitments today. So without further ado, Chair, over to you.
Thank you, Joe. Yes, so I'm now going to invite our licensing officer to outline the application and provide a reference to any relevant licensing policy and statutory guidance.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry.
Right. Okay, can you hear me okay? Okay, so this hearing is to determine the application for premises licence made under the Licensing Act 2003 by Alice Atkinson on the 29th of February.
Sorry. We can't hear you. Can you go closer to the microphone?
Sorry. Okay. So this hearing is to determine the application for a premises licence made under the Licensing Act 2003 by Alice Atkinson on the 29th of February 2024 in relation to the premises Barndrift and the hangar located at Alderman's Lane, Cly, Holt, Norfolk. The completed application form can be seen on pages 33 to 48 of the report. Okay. The premises, see plan on 51, is used as a self-catering holiday let that sleeps up to 16 guests in the main building. The hangar opposite the main building is an open plan and contains no bedrooms. Both buildings are licensed for wedding ceremonies. The main building contains outdoor paved areas for guests to circulate and walk gardens. The combined lawn area, some of which is for camping, is approximately 1 acre. The plan on page 51 shows the extent of the area outlined in red that licensed activities are to be carried out. The applicant has confirmed that the events are managed by the proposed designated Mrs. Supervisor for DPS, Michelle Stocker, and the noise level monitoring is carried out every half an hour at events by officers from Phoenix Security.
It's, we just can't hear you. Can you try another station, please? And I may have to ask you, sorry, we thought it might get better, but it's just intelligible, I think. It's, so we just do a road test on this one then.
Yeah, can you hear me okay? Is that better? Okay, can you hear that? It's, no, that's okay. It's hard to get this right, isn't it? Okay. So the applicant has confirmed that the events are managed by the proposed designated premises supervisor, Michelle Stocker, and that noise level monitoring is carried out every half an hour at events by officers from Phoenix Security. Copies of the noise logs sheets completed by this company for temporary events held in September and December 2023 featured on page 71 and 77 in the report. Okay. The applicant seeks permission to operate as follows. Opening hours Monday to Sunday from midday to 1 AM, both indoors and outdoors. Live recorded music Monday to Sunday from midday to midnight, both indoors and outdoors. Late night refreshments Monday to Sunday, midday to 1 AM, both indoors and outdoors. The sale of alcohol on and off the premises from midday to 1 AM, both indoors and outdoors. The license is subject to mandatory conditions that are listed on pages 14 to 16 of the report. During the 28 consultation period, which ended on the 4th of April this year, the council received representations from the following responsible authorities. The fire service, application acknowledged and referral to guidance documents on places of assembly, see page 61. Police licensing, no objections, subject to the business operating a Challenge 25 policy. Environmental health commercial, which is food and health and safety, no objections. Environmental protection, the environmental protection officer, Gary Hughes, there's no objections, subject to the agreement of conditions listed on pages 17 and 18 of the report, A to I. The applicant has agreed to some of the conditions. Please refer to the applicant's responses on pages 77 and 78. The applicant is seeking to have external events to cease at midnight and therefore does not agree with the condition EN 16, which reads, external events must not go beyond 2300 hours without prior approval of the licensing authority. Environmental health licensing, no objections, subject to agreement with conditions proposed by the police. And environmental protection, there was no response from the following consultees: Primary Care Trust, Norfolk Safeguarding Children's Board, Trading Standards, and Home Office Immigration Department. The Planning Department at Norfolk District Council, an objection has been raised on the grounds that the premises does not have permission to operate outside the permitted development rights. This response can be seen on page 69. representations from other persons. 4 representations were received from other persons concerning this application, all under the licence and objective prevention of public nuisance. Objection 1, Councillor Victoria Holiday, see page 57 of the report. Objection 2, Clyde Parish Council, see page 58. Objection 3, Catherine Lord and David McKnight, see page 59. And objection 4, William Martin, see page 60. Chair, it is the role of the licensing committee to hear the cases forward from the applicant and those making representations and determine whether the licence should be granted subject to conditions imposed, or refused. The decision must be based on the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives, that is, the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. You must also consider the Council's licensing policy and government guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. And that concludes my summary.
Yes, thank you very much for your report. And I invite members to ask any questions of the licensing officer about his report. Perhaps I'll just start that off by asking, just refresh my memory, what challenge 25 policy is, please.
Yes, I'll look this up. It encourages everyone who is over 18 but appears under 25 to carry acceptable ID if they wish to buy alcohol.
Thank you. Members, are there any other questions? Anything? No, we're fine with that then. Thank you very much for the time being. Now, we're asking the applicant to set out your case. Sorry. I beg your pardon. That was one of my tests for the day. And that goes the same as that you've heard the licensing officer's report. The members have had their opportunity to ask a question. Is there anything that you would like, any of you would like to ask the licensing officer to only on his report to make some clarifications or what? I'll take that as no then. So I'll then go on to the applicant and ask them to set out their case for today. As I said before, 15 minutes, please, max.
Yeah.
And you can call witnesses to support your case if they're present here today. Thank you.
So I applied for this premises.
Thank you.
Is that better? Yeah, I applied for the premises license really on the advice from the licensing department. So since being, I mean, it's primarily a holiday let, but since being licensed for weddings, which we just do a few a year, I've applied for a temporary event notice every time, and it's a lengthy form and it takes a lot of my time and a lot of the licensing department's time to go through it. And after many years of doing this for each event, detailing the different activities going on at each event, licensing suggested I apply for a permanent license, which is what this is. And having taken on Michelle as my part-time assistant, we discussed it and agreed it would be a more efficient way to run the business, which is primarily a holiday let, but we do have this arm that is provides a venue for family weddings. And what makes it unusual from really, I think, all other wedding venues is that we have a 3-night minimum stay all year and a 7-night minimum stay in July and August. And that is solely to not cut out the holiday let business. So that means that in July and August, really it's pretty much fully available. People wanting to take holidays, and it's less available for weddings. It means we never ever have back-to-back weddings. It just keeps so much more control of what could become, you know, full-time wedding business, which is what we don't want. We Barndrift guests always, whether they're holidays or weddings, they always have lots of dogs and kids. It's that sort of place. It's not, you know, it's a family place. It's a family home, basically. And we only get between about 10 and 20 weddings a year. It fluctuates. This year we have 11. And yeah, we applied for the premises license to minimize admin. We had obviously one complaint in 2016 where somebody broke the rules. I have really strict booking forms, which also allows me to keep full control about how the place is being used. I'm immensely proud of it, and it's incredibly beautiful inside and well looked after, and I have a brilliant team that does that. And so I have very strict questions throughout the form about how it's being used. And for the first time ever, somebody broke these rules. And so I discussed with licensing how to manage that and adjusted the booking form. And then after COVID, not unsurprisingly, we had a couple of wilder than usual events. And again, I know Victoria, as the chairman of our parish council, had complaints. And so again, we adjusted it. And we had a meeting in, I think it was July 2022, about disturbance, which is the last thing I want to do. You know, I'm very involved in the community, obviously, having grown up in the village, and I also run the farm and have many, many friends in the village. We all agreed, Victoria and the vice chairman and the clerk of the parish council, that midnight was a reasonable time to end venue events. So we going forward, that's what we did. And then the following spring, I took on Phoenix, which Amy runs, and they are there. So I'm always there. I just live a few yards away. And now I have Michelle as well to further oversee when we have events. And now, you know, since last May, we've had a trained security person or several people, if the numbers are higher, from 6 in the evening until it ends. And they measure the sound and keep a, you know, I mean, I'll hand over to Anna to explain more about that side of it. And really that's, I think that's all I can tell you at this stage.
Yes, thank you. Did you say you wanted,
Yes,
you can call your witnesses now to speak?
yes,
And this
I
is
think if that's all right,
the Phoenix
Anna can
security.
explain how they manage it.
Of course. So yes, like I said, my name's Anna and I'm the Director of Operations at Phoenix Events East Limited. We're a private security and events company based in Norwich. The first event that we actually worked at Barndrift was the 6th of May 2023. That is the first time that we deployed our security officers there. So just to give kind of an outline of who they are and what they do. All of the guards that we provide to Barndrift are SIA licensed, DS SIA licensed security officers. So that is a door supervisor officer deployed under the SIA, which is the Security Industry Authority. Essentially, when we first started at Barndrift, we were made aware that there had in the past been a few noise complaints, and that it was kind of the last thing that Alice wanted to do was to disturb anyone or create any kind of public nuisance or anything like that. Hence why she came to us to look into some ways to monitor that. We had a discussion and we spoke about things that my company did at other venues, similar places that we work at. And we decided that taking decibel readings from various points through the venue at different kind of hotspots, if you like, places where the sound is more likely to be louder than acceptable, would be taken. They would all then be recorded, written down so that they could then be referenced back if there were any further complaints or if anything was sounding too loud, too outrageous, that my guards could then step in, just make either the DJ or the band aware or the people, if that was who was creating the noise, just to kind of tone it down, to remind them to be respectful of kind of the area and the environment they were in. All of those sound recordings, I believe some of them have been submitted to you before. They were recorded in this log here and have been ever since the 6th of May, the first event that we did. And essentially that has also progressed over time in the way that we do it. So there are, I believe, 4 or 5 locations. They'll be all written down in the logs that have been submitted to you. But these are essentially the points at the venue that have been highlighted as the places where sound is more likely to reach those higher limits. And that is why those locations were chosen to take the decibel readings. I believe at first we decided on a maximum of, it was either 75 or 80 decibels at these points at the venue. That was based solely on things that my company do at other venues. You know, I work at these kind of venues all the time. We provide guards to an awful lot of them. And so that is why I went in with that recommendation to Alice, to say, you know, this is what other people are doing. Maybe it would be good for your venue to work to that as well. So that was, like I say, 6th of May 2023. I believe we then reviewed it again in June of 2023. And we decided that to actually further mitigate any sound issues, that we would actually reduce that to 70 decibels. And that is what we have been working at ever since. It very, very rarely reaches 70 decibels, to be honest, in any of the locations throughout the venue. And when it does, my guards are fully aware that that's the point at which they will then step in and either make the band aware or the DJ or whoever, just to kind of keep it down and remain respectful, essentially. Again, the reason that that choice was made to go down to 70 decibels was just, it was actually brought to me by Alice. It wasn't something that I implemented, essentially just to further mitigate any noise complaints, because as I say, from the day I met Alice, I went for a preliminary meeting right at the start. She has made it very, very clear to me that the last thing she would ever want is to disturb anyone, create any nuisance, or disturb anyone's kind of living arrangements. It is absolutely, as Alice says, based more as a holiday let than a wedding venue. That is in my experience from visiting the venue. I'm there quite a lot to both check on my guards and to just see how things are. I mean, I attend regularly to look at the logbook as well, just to make sure that all the logs are kept up to date and everything like that. I would also like to mention, if I may, just from some of the other venues that I work at, as I said, that's kind of how we came to this agreement on what decibel reading should be used. I have never seen the minimum stays that Barndrift implement. So for a 3-day minimum or a 7-day minimum, excuse me, I have never ever seen that at the numerous wedding and holiday let venues that we run. And from my perspective anyway, as somebody who works at these kind of venues all the time, it is an absolute testament to the fact that it is a real effort to try and minimize these noise pollution levels, because most, if not all, of the other venues I work at would quite happily have weddings back to back to back throughout the summer, and most of them do, which, you know, I fully understand. The more weddings you can fit in your venue in the summer, the more money you're going to generate. It does make sense. But I would say that I do think it's important to highlight that fact that if we're talking about noise pollution and mitigation of that, then a 7-day minimum is, from my perspective anyway, an absolutely outstanding thing to implement, and something that I have rarely, if ever, seen at any of the other venues I work at. I would also say I have never, apart from Alice, had a client come to me and ask to reduce sound readings further than what I have suggested. If anything, I've had clients come to me and say, Anna, do you think it would be okay if we pushed it up to so-and-so levels, just so that we can, you know, make it a more lively atmosphere for our guests? But Alice most certainly did not do that. It was actually her, like I say, who came to me and suggested we lower it even more. Yes, so in terms of if there ever are breaches or things that go over that 70 decibels, I am not going to sit here and say to you that it has never happened, because it has happened on occasion. I would draw attention, I think this has been submitted to you, one of the logs that has been set it out, actually the 4th of this month, so just gone. There was a recording in one of the logs where at 8:10 in the evening, the sound readings at the entrance went to 76.2 decibels, which obviously is 6.2 decibels over that 70 that we suggested. Then reading through the log, my guard went in, he closed the back door, he made the band aware and asked them to keep it down. And within 20 minutes, the decibel readings were back down into the 60s. So within 20 minutes, that one moment of the sound readings going too high was immediately solved and back down well below any limit that we had set out. Again, I would say Alice's kind of involvement in looking at the logs and actually being aware of what's going on is something that I see from very, very few of my clients. If I'm being completely honest, for some of them, unfortunately, it does seem like they use it as sort of a checkbox exercise, if you like, so they can say they're doing it. That is absolutely not the case at Barndrift. I have never met a client who is so involved and so caring in actually keeping the sound low. And, you know, I have 6 wedding venues, not including Barndrift, that we deploy to regularly, and other ones that we just deploy to as and when they come up. I have been in this job for 4 years, and as I say, I have never met anyone as involved in actually wanting to keep these sound readings as low as Mrs. Atkinson. So yes, I think I just wanted to highlight that fact of that occasion when the decibel readings did actually go a little bit too high, just to show that actually the things that Alice is putting in place, such as employing my company, are absolutely working, because you know it was due to that she implemented having my company there, that on that occasion, on the 4th of this month, brought down those decibel readings from 76.2 to back into the 60s within 20 minutes. And they then didn't exceed or even go anywhere near that limit for the rest of the evening. As I say, it's all recorded, all noted down. And from my company's perspective, we have these sound check readings sent to us through the company's book on number every half an hour when the guard takes them. There's a pool of about 4 staff who go to Barndrift regularly. So they all know the venue very well, and they know exactly what they're doing. They're very, very capable. And if there are ever any changes, then we let Alice know ahead of time anyway. I would also say, apologies for taking so much time, but I would also say, that's fine, no, I would also say that Alice, we were having a conversation yesterday, in fact, is always looking for ways to improve what she's doing as well. You know, like I say, I work on these venues a lot, so I will regularly and happily offer any suggestions that I can of, you know, ways to continue to reduce the noise and improve the service, anything like that I can. And yeah, really, that's it from me. Alice and Barndrift will have Phoenix's full and ongoing support in this matter to make sure that it remains the friendly, community focused holiday let and venue that it is and deserves to continue to be.
Thank you very much for your input. This is now will go out to the members here to ask some questions. But first, I'd just like to ask 1 or 2, just for the sake of people who are not familiar but might be looking in. What's the distance between your own establishment and the nearest dwelling or place of residence?
It's just over 500 yards.
And what's the density of any buildings nearby that might be impacted by noise?
So that nearest house is in a collection of about 20 houses.
Okay, thank you. Finally, just a point is that we all know that sound is impacted by environmental matters and issues, that what could be a particular sound at a particular point might be impacted by environmental matters, by wind and other factors that might cause some disturbance to neighbours. So members, any questions, please? Okay, thank you, Polly.
Could you tell me what hours your security guards are actually on site, please?
Yes, absolutely. So our bookings are 6 p.m. onwards. And like I say, there's a pool of regular staff who go there and they know that they are to stay on site until the event is finished. So that's kind of what their provision is. So there is no sort of formal end time, if you like. It is just they are all aware and they all know that they are to stay on site until everyone's gone and the band's packed down, music stops and everything's cleared. And like I say, that's all recorded in the logbook as well. So they'll always say band packing down, event venue clear, everyone leaving, something like that.
And presumably if once your guards had left the site, if anything started again, your guards could be recalled back to the site?
Oh, absolutely. Yep, definitely. I mean, we have a contact number that Alice has access to 24/7. She also knows she could ring me, she could ring my co-director. And the guards are all very local. So they could be back on site within a matter of minutes, really, if anything were to. We have never had that. I would like to point out we have never had an issue with that. But if there ever was, then absolutely yes. I'm sure Alice would agree that she knows our guards would be back on site as soon as
Thank
possible.
you.
For the applicant, I take it that your resident, when you have a wedding, your residential side of the business will be taken up by guests of the wedding?
Yes, it's a family home, so a family will, so I've got people arriving on this Thursday, and people moving in are getting married there. So they're treating it as
So the
their own.
residents will be part of the wedding. So
Completely,
you,
yeah, so it's a private hire sort of.
so are these weddings mainly for young people? I mean,
No,
younger
they're
people
not.
tend to get married?
Most of our weddings actually are people my age.
I was just, that's interesting.
Parents
So,
my age.
yeah, I was going to say, so what is the restriction? I mean, well, with young people, they want to party on and they're residents there. What is to restrict them from partying on
They,
after the main celebrations have finished?
yeah, absolutely. So it's very clearly outlined in the booking form, and we repeat it again and again and again. So we have an initial booking form that spells it out, and then nearer the time, a sort of follow-up booking form, final details, spells it out again. And once they're in the house, I've got A5 laminated books in every room that spells it out again. And then, of course, Michelle and I are always there, and then Phoenix are there until the end.
Can I ask, the providers of the music, do they have the equipment to cut off when they do reach decibel? And are they aware of the difference between bass and treble in as much as the bass cuts off before the treble?
Yes. So this is something I discuss with them. So whenever there is an event, a wedding booked there, the customer has to give me all the provider, supplier information, and I then contact them directly, months, sometimes a year before, to discuss what they're doing, etc., and to explain what our rules are and how it's just not a sort of venue that can go on into the night.
Okay, and what is the, how would you say, how much recorded music compared to live music, or how much live music compared to recorded music?
Well, because it's a small wedding venue, it's mostly a band that plays in the afternoon and then perhaps recorded for a bit of dancing after dinner. That's our usual sort of format, as it were.
You don't have a lot of heavy metal?
No, I don't think we've ever had any.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. Just one thing, transport arrangements. How do you have any control of how people use, I mean, is there chances of blockage on the roads, etc.?
Well, I encourage, Cly is stuffed full of holiday lets and B&Bs. And I encourage people and give them all the links to book in so everyone can walk, so that there, and as far as, I mean, I live in the village, I've never noticed.
And can I actually, this is probably nothing to do with licensing, but just for me. You're a part of an ANOB.
Yes.
You are within an ANOB, so there is added restrictions because it's protected.
Mm.
How aware are you of being in a protected area for wildlife, and does any of the entertainment disturb the wildlife? Because I think it might.
Well, I'm fully aware of that, and because I run the farm around it, and over a third is stewardship, and I manage that on my own. And I mean, very recently going through some woodland work close by, and because of work I did, we now have spoonbills nesting in there. So if I'm running a wild event venue next door, there's no way. I mean, spoonbills haven't nested in England since the Middle Ages. So, you know, I'm really aware, and I don't allow fireworks because it's unenvironmental, etc. It's just, and I point out to people that are coming, and people come because of that. They've
So you're
come-
cutting down on light shows?
I don't have any light shows, and all the outside lighting at the house is minimal, low voltage.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, just come to mind now is that just to take me back the last 12 months, for example, how many weddings did you have in the last, or events did you have at your premises in the last 12 months?
So I looked last night, I counted up how many we got this year from January to January, and there are 11 this year. And I from memory, I think there were 12 last year, but it fluctuates between 10 and 12. We had earlier on this year, we had I think 3 weddings, one weekend after the other. First one, 10 guests, second one, 24 guests, and the third one was something like 15 guests. And that's really typical for us. It's affordable, small family home, people that are engaged in the environment. They want to get married to the sound of wildlife, not to
Not
recorded.
wildlife.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and the second thing is, so you've had that number of events now planned over the last 12 months.
Yeah.
Is that with this license that you're applying for today, what is your vision? What usage, how many events could you have now, for instance, if should this be granted?
And no intention of changing anything at all. The system works so well because I also provide holiday lets and corporate events, you know, getaway offsites, etc. And it's really important to me that I don't stop any of that, having the variety of use, and it's used by the community a lot, sort of one-off events in the hangar, book launches, charity events, etc.
But potentially you could have an event every day.
Well, I mean, if I sold it and somebody bought it and wanted to do that, but I would never do that.
I'm just making a point that the clarity, it's
Yeah.
not what you're going to do, it's what could happen with any licenses that might be.
Well, I also
granted
could
or
have,
not.
yeah, temporary event notices I could have done every day as well.
Yes.
So it's the same process.
Okay, any more questions, members? No? Okay, so I'll now I can ask other. No, no, no. So now it's this part of the proceedings. I ask other persons to set out their case.
No, I am going to have to intervene. The responsible authorities and councillor have the opportunity to ask questions. And actually, I have a question, Chair, if that's okay as well.
Oh, yes, I've just missed a page out. That's
Yeah, that's okay. I'll wait because it may be that that the responsible authorities may cover my question. So I'll wait till the end. So I'll hand over to see if there's any other questions there.
I will come back to you now. Invite our environmental representative here to give his report, please. Questions, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I did have a number of pre-prepared questions, which the committee has already asked some of, so you preempted me there. I do have a couple of questions though. The logs that you provided to me were from September and December last year. I wasn't aware that the logs had been started in May. Is there any particular reason you didn't send me any of the May ones? Because you did say that in June you changed it to 70 decibels. Do you know what date in June that was?
I don't think I do. I think it was, I believe it was early June, because like I say, our first one that we did was the 6th of May. And I don't think
Yes,
it was early June. Yeah. So our first one was the 6th of May, and I think it was around about a month that we'd been there. And then I had another chat with Alice.
Okay. The reason I asked the question is simply because the complaints that we have recorded on our system are from the end of June.
Right, yes, because actually you had asked for the most recent ones, which is why I sent those.
Okay.
But I mean, they're right here if you want to see.
No, it's fine. It's just I wasn't aware of that,
Yeah.
which is why I asked for the latest ones. I'm wondering if your change to 70 decibels was in response to those complaints.
Yes,
They were
I
on the
think, yes,
17th, 11th of June and the 28th of May.
yes. So I've got here a copy of an email from Victoria saying there was one complaint. And then earlier saying a parishioner has complained, and that's when I had the meeting with Anna to say, what can we do to
Okay.
stop this?
So I think the question was asked earlier about the number of events. How many of those are indoors and how many are outdoors?
Well, generally they're all indoors. Generally people will, they'll have lunch or dinner indoors.
So the music, the band or the DJ
Yes.
are inside.
Yes, and then occasionally there'll be a marquee, but we don't do those sort of, huge events.
Okay, and how many people can you fit inside?
We're licensed for 40 in the drawing room, 50 in the dining room, 100 in the hanging room.
I think one of the members touched on this earlier. Do the security officers have physical control of sound levels? Is there a sound limiter in the premises, or is it just a case of asking the band to turn down or asking the DJ to turn down?
Yeah, so since we've started, it's just been a case of they've been responsible for taking the decibel readings for being the people responsible for actually getting that information. It was actually, funnily enough, a conversation Alison and I had yesterday
Yes.
about a sound limiter
Yeah.
for electronic drum kits.
Mhm.
In which case then we were discussing have the code or the key or whatever it would be for this sound limiter. But what I would say is because we are fortunate enough that it has been so infrequent, and because of the type of people who are getting married at Barndrift, there has never been kind of that need that we do feel at other venues for there to be that sort of very imposing kind of stringent aspect of sort of cutting out sound or anything like that, because it, like I say, it has absolutely never ever been required at Barndrift. But as I said, it is something that we have already spoken about and would be more than happy to implement from
Absolutely.
Phoenix's perspective anyway.
Okay, the only other question I have then is there a contact number for residents to call you
I'm fully.
in real time?
fully
And
fully
how is that published? How do they know that
it's
number?
everywhere. It's on the website. It's also on the farm website. And obviously everyone, residents of the house have it in every room.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions for the?
No, I don't think so.
No, okay.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Just one, and it might be that this can be, our environmental protection officer can answer this at a later stage, but it's more for Anna here. So you've obviously talked about you limit the sound on site to 70 decibels, and one of the conditions I think that's been suggested by the environmental protection team, which I think you've agreed to, is that it won't be louder than 45 decibels at the closest dwelling. Sorry, I'm no sound expert or mathematician, so I'm just curious how those
measure
line
that,
up.
yeah.
Really, if you could just, if is the 70 at the venue, is that over that distance sufficiently reduced down to comply with that? And
It's well
You
over,
happy for me
isn't
to?
it? Yes, please.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
so I will say I'm not a sound technician. I'm not, fully up to date on how exactly the sound travels or anything like that. But to my knowledge, certainly anyway, when I've gone to Barndrift during the events to just do welfare checks on the guards or check the logbooks or check how things are happening, anything like that, the sort of bottom of the road, which is the the closest road I would get to any dwellings to then drive into the venue. I always, when I go, just to check, there's a little pull in and I just pull and I just turn off my engine and wind down my windows. And I do always just have a bit of a listen. And I have never, honestly, never been able to hear anything,
No.
to be honest. That's all I can say. I have never heard anything.
Sorry, I just obviously, I don't, you've agreed to these. What I don't want you doing is setting yourself up to fail. So you've sort of,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? You're agreeing to the 45.
Yes.
If actually, so I'm wondering whether, you take those sort
My-
of tests at the properties.
Yes, so
that's what I do
what,
as well.
I didn't tell Anna actually, but my oldest son had his 25th birthday in Hanger the other day. And so it was just us, and he had 20 friends, and we thought, well, this is perfect time to measure the sound. I know the person in the nearest house really, really well, so we went down there with a sound meter, and it was way, way below 45, and Ollie was there on the phone, we like turned it up a bit more. We just, we're not setting ourselves up to fail. It's very achievable.
Thank you. Are we all content now, members? So now I will move on to other persons to set out their case, and Councillor Holliday is here today.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt again, because the next person would need to be our environmental protection officer to make any representations they have. Please. And then Councillor Holliday will follow after that. I do
We'll
apologise.
talk about the script later.
I do apologise for keep interrupting you.
Which is not in keeping with what you say. So our environmental officer, please, any comments you wish to make?
Thank you, Chair. No, I think my basically the conditions that I've suggested, I would hope would mitigate any potential noise. I don't think I really need to say any more. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, eventually, sorry.
Just no questions
Is it-
now.
j-
Anybody else questions of the environmental protection?
Yes, well, you've just heard what the legal officer, anybody, any questions for the environmental officer?
Yes. So could you just say the further conditions that you were alluding to?
Yes, on page 17, there's a list of the PN conditions.
So the same conditions, there's no extra conditions?
There's no
on
extra
that?
conditions, no. I basically set out what I think I would like to.
So it's same conditions as in the paper? That's
It
all
is.
I'm trying
That's
to
correct.
establish. Thank you very much indeed.
Yes, please, yes.
Sorry, could you just, obviously, I appreciate you've submitted your written report. Could you just give the committee an idea of how many complaints, what your involvement historically has been in relation to this venue, please?
My direct involvement, 0.
Oh, sorry, the team generally, then, if you could provide.
Right, yeah. I think as I said earlier, that the number of complaints that are recorded on the system is 3 from last June. There's some anecdotal evidence of other complaints, but those are the only ones that I can speak to.
And is there anything going back prior to June?
Again, not that I'm aware of. Just to make you aware, I've only worked on this team since January anyway. So all I've been able to do is check what's on the system.
No, that's absolutely fine. I mean,
And
I'm just
what's
asking
available.
what's on the system, really.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And eventually, Councillor Holliday, we're over to you. And so you're out here to set out your case as you wish. And obviously you submitted all your evidence and report and things like that, have it?
I put in a report, but
Yes, that's it. Okay, so over to you, as they say.
So I'm attending both in my role as a ward member and the chair of Clyde Parish Council. And the points I want to make concern the noise nuisance. the proposed licensing application, the suggested conditions and the planning status of the premise. Speaking as parish chair, noise nuisance at Barndrift is a contentious issue in Cley. Over the last 3 years, reviewing emails, noise nuisance has been reported to me on 16 occasions. Noise nuisance at Barndrift has been discussed by the parish council 5 times, who have written to the owner 3 times and met with her once. My fellow councillors and I have been in contact with Environmental Health about Barndrift, I calculate, on 10 occasions. And the MP wrote to NNDC as well. And in June, the property was added to the list of premises Environmental Health would respond to if noise complaints were received by the answering service. As well as the representations in this report, several parishioners, not realising the deadline for comments, have been in touch in the last few days. And I'm just going to quote from a couple of them with their permission. We live half a mile from Barndrift and can hear their loud amplified music inside our home into the night. There is often discussion about noise from Barndrift on the village WhatsApp group. Someone else says, we can often hear the lyrics to songs with heavy bass beats when I'm putting my child to bed and it keeps them up and disturbs us. We object to the extension of the current license agreement. There are times when the sound of parties in full swing can be heard from our bed. I understand there is no set decibel level in law as to what constitutes a statutory nuisance, and that an officer can determine whether noise nuisance is occurring without a sound meter. I'm told it's all about whether noise is affecting a resident's use and enjoyment of their property. For example, residents shouldn't have to close windows. You can see from the parishioners' representation that the noise from these events does affect their enjoyment of their property. However, I also understand if you are taking a quantitative approach, permitted noise levels are 34 decibels between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. We'll come back to that later. So the requested license is, as it has been stated, for the sale of alcohol indoors and outdoors on and off the premises from 12 noon to 1 a.m, for live and recorded music in and outdoors from 12 noon to midnight, and late night refreshments 12 noon till 1 a.m, all 7 days a week. I will come on to the planning considerations later. Environmental Health does not object subject to the following conditions. Let's just have a look at these. And there may be some questions tucked in here, but I didn't realise I was meant to ask them separately. I apologise. The premises shall be arranged to minimise risk of noise nuisance to nearby properties. So my question is, how is this to be achieved and how will it be enforced? Apart from the volume, the direction of the wind is the greatest determinant as to who is going to be affected. Noise must not exceed 45 decibels as measured a metre away from any residential dwelling, not just the ones in Nobleman's Lane, is what it says in the conditions. What has happened to the qualitative interpretation of noise nuisance, i.e. that noise must not interfere with the peaceful enjoyment of your home? If we must quantify, this is where we come back to the recommended 34 decibel level, and why we set a decibel level of 45. How does that, and a question that's been raised already, how does that residential threshold relate to the decibel level of the venue? And how is this going to be monitored and enforced? The designated supervisor has control over sound levels and there will be half-hourly sound checks inside and out. And don't get me wrong, we do appreciate all the effort that's been gone into as far as controlling the noise. But what decibel level will be acceptable? Are we sure the measurements are accurate? I see from the records available that the decibel levels are well in excess of 45. Barndrift is set high up on the side of a valley. Measuring decibels at the bottom of the lane from the premises doesn't take into account the fact sound is carrying across the valley from the venue itself. The sound won't carry from the bottom of the lane. There are high hedges and it's lower in the valley. Doors and windows should be fitted with double glazing and must be kept shut. Who will enforce this? I see the owner says yes in cold weather, but most of the weddings are hosted when it's warm. External events must not go past 11 p.m. The parish would be delighted with this deadline. We were very pleased with the midnight curfew because it was preferable to the 1:30 or 2 a.m. finishes which had occurred on occasions before. Artificial light, that hasn't been raised as an issue, but obviously in the A or in B it could possibly be, and even fairy lights, innocuous though they are, can create a glare if used in sufficient quantity. There don't seem to be any proposed conditions about the sale of alcohol indoors and outdoors and off the premises till 1 a.m. Surely this will lead to increased activity outside the barn and therefore more noise and traffic. Several residents have mentioned that events 7 days a week penalise those with young children and those who work. Should this licence be granted, can there be a condition regarding the days on the week this licence should operate? let me just pick up on the planning issue. So the application describes Barndrift as a holiday let and event venue for private events, with a hangar license for ceremonies, as well as the drawing room and dining rooms in Barndrift. Permission was granted in 2007 for conversion of the barn to 1 unit of holiday accommodation. There was a subsequent application to convert the garage to habitable accommodation, and another to extend the dining room, but no change of authorised use. It is understood that under permitted development, the premises would have a licence for 28 solemnisation events a year. Currently, I understand the building does not have permission for mixed use, and the hangar has no permission to be used in association with Barndrift. And also picking up the point was made earlier that the requested licence is not for a limited number of events. So speaking as a district councillor, I don't see how a licence can be granted for premises without the correct planning permission. So taking these various concerns together, as parish chair and ward member, I ask that you refuse the licence application or seriously consider the conditions that have been requested. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Now, members to
So members and then any other parties to ask questions of councillor
just
Holiday.
just one thing, Councillor Holiday, just to make clear for the records, is that the planning application is a separate hearing from today, so that element of it will not be considered by the licensing authority. So, and members, have you any questions, please? For
Yes. Yes, councillor Holiday. I was interested, you were talking about decibel levels and you were talking about 45 inside a house, is that correct?
Following a conversation with environmental health, understanding that there was no set decibel level.
I see,
And then,
I mean,
and then I looked it up and I saw that 34 was considered an acceptable decibel level. And then that's why I just looked at the 45 and picked up.
I mean,
on
it's a logarithmic scale is decibel and 45 is really very, very, very low and quite comfortable. And that's basically 40 is the average noise in somebody's house without the Hoover. But yeah, I was just interested how you got those figures, but yeah, thank you.
do you have anything to say, Jeremy?
I do, but I'd like to do it.
Okay, so it's now ask our licensing or environmental. Do you have any questions?
No, Chair, nothing from me, thank you.
No, no questions.
Okay, so just a little bit of a slight deviation from procedure here. And it's really just in the interests of making sure everybody's happy in terms of when the time comes for determinations to be made. So Mrs. I'm just wondering, so you've heard the comments. I mean, you've gone to great pains today to tell us that there's no intention for you to extend or go beyond what you're already doing. But as you quite rightly said, if you sold it on, if your business model changed, essentially what you're asking for, there are no restrictions at all. And what we've heard from Councillor Holiday is there are, I think, a lot of the concerns from perhaps, or there have been risen, are on the basis that essentially there could be events every night of the week. And I know you say that's not your intention, but essentially having a license provides a carte blanche for that. Now, I'm in no way predetermining or making any suggestion. I'm just wondering if there's any conditions you may be prepared to agree with. And I'm not asking you on the spot. If you want to have a think about it, I'm sure our chair would be agreeable to a short adjournment, so you can have a think about things. Whether you might be prepared to consider any conditions that might allay the concerns of some of the residents with regards to number of events, that kind of thing. I mean, if not, that's absolutely fine. It was just a case of No, I absolutely take your point, and you know, you come across as very genuine in what your business model is and how you continue. But as you conceded earlier, there is the possibility, if you had a license for every single day, potentially, and what people, I think what people see when they see you applying for every single day for events. So I'm just wondering at this stage if there's anything you'd be prepared to consider to alleviate the concerns. As I say, if you're not, I don't wish to put you on the spot. If you want to have a short while to have a think about it, and if you want to come back and say, do you know what, I'm more than happy with what I've presented, that's fine. Okay, that's absolutely fine. Thank you.
Yes, I think it was just an opportunity for you to go a bit like Dragon's Den, go to the wall and make some have some thought about anything that you might do to bring forward the application in all. So okay, so we've been through that. So is now as a chat, and I can now as my point to invite each of the parties present a closing submission of no more than 5 minutes to the subcommittee in the following order. The first, the responsible authority or responsible authorities. That's you, Joe. Okay.
It's out in there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to do it in the order that it's set out. Yes.
So that would be.
Thank you again. Yeah, just to sum up, I'm aware of the previous complaints. As I say, I'm aware of 3 that have been recorded on the system. I wouldn't like to disagree with Councillor Holliday. It may well be that there are more that for some reason haven't been recorded, or there is a possibility that more than one complaint has been recorded against a single entry. So without having the system to hand, I can't say yes or no to that. My view, though, is that I've submitted some conditions that I believe mitigate to a large extent the risks that it may pose to noise within the area, and that's pretty much my submission.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Councillor Holliday, do you have any up to 5 minutes to sum up?
Don't worry, I won't take that long. I mean, we do appreciate everything that's been done to mitigate. But I would say that our evidence is somewhat it's different from yours, but perhaps it's just come in a different way. But what I've presented is how the parish feels about it. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holliday. This is our licensing officer.
Okay, so Chair, based on the information in the report and the submissions put forward today from all parties, you must make a decision on whether to either grant the licence, grant it subject to conditions imposed, or refuse it. Your decision must be based on the promotion of the aforementioned licensing conditions. Again, these are public safety, prevention of crime and disorder, prevention of public nuisance, and protection of children from harm. You must also consider the Council's licensing policy and government guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licence Act 2003. Please bear in mind that subject to planning approval, licensing the venue to sell alcohol will entitle the licence holder to hold amplified music and recorded music events for up to 500 people between the hours of 8 AM and 11 PM. These entertainment activities are only licensable following a review of the existing licence. See page 30 under overview of circumstances in which entertainment activities are not licensable. That concludes my statement.
Yes, thank you. Yes, now it's the applicant's turn to 5 minutes to sum up what it is that you want.
Sorry, yeah, so just the reason for applying is to minimise my admin, not to make any change. And as Victoria's already said, you know, we've implemented a lot. We've reacted every time there's a genuine complaint. We have made changes, which you already know all about. What I haven't mentioned actually is that since we first got a complaint, I've been adding to the planting extensively. So putting in, I've researched, and there are oak trees called Paulonia that are perfect for sound absorption, fast growing, large leaves. So every year we're putting in more of that to increase sound absorption. And I've made a list of, having discussed with Anna, what we can do, you know, more that we can do to mitigate any disturbance in the village. And as Anna already mentioned, we've looked into getting a limiter, which would, you know, without doubt, we would get that if it would help. Excuse me, and we'll continue the annual planting of trees and shrubs. And we'll add a rule as to exactly where and how speakers are positioned, because to the north and east, it's about 3 or 4 miles to the next residence. So that would, you know, help hugely. And obviously guests coming in, although most of them are local anyway, they may not have taken into account that one side is residential and the other side is not. So if we have that, it's going to really, really help.
Yes, thank you. Yes, just go back to our legal advisor. Any further comments you wish to make?
No, I think our reserve comments until after you've reached a determination, at which point, if I've provided any legal advice, I will announce that publicly for everybody to hear.
Right, well, thank you all for your presentations at the moment. With this committee is now going to retire to see if we can see to determination. So thank you. We'll be back in what they often say is due course. Thank you, and thank you for all your attendance and your contributions this morning. But before I read anything out to you, I'd like to invite our legal officer to say a few words.
I just want to say out loud for the benefit of everybody here, the legal advice that I provided in private to members. It's relatively limited. I, during the course of their discussions, reminded them that any conditions they wish to impose must relate to any objections that have been raised. I drew their attention to the legal case of Thwaites, which generally talks about the responsible authorities being their relative, the experts in their relative areas, and again reminded them that the absence of any planning permission is not a matter that ought to be considered as part of this licensing process. And that concludes everything.
Yes, thank you, Joe. Yes, so in essence, I've shortened this down a little bit, is the application is granted subject to the following conditions: the mandatory licensing conditions, the conditions on the operating schedule, and conditions as suggested by the police in relation to Challenge 25 scheme. Conditions suggested by the Environment Protection Officer subject to the following amendments to condition F, which shall be: external events must not continue beyond 2300 hours, save for on no more than 20 occasions per annum, in which occasions must fall on a Friday or a Saturday. Live music and recorded music may continue until 12 midnight. Records must be kept and made available to the licensing authority upon request. In reaching this decision, the subcommittee are seeking to balance the concerns of local residents in terms of noise disturbance and the considerable efforts of the applicant has made, and continues to make in relation to reducing noise nuisance to local residents. A full determination notice with reasons will be provided in writing within 5 days. That's to all parties today. So that's the conclusion of today, and thank you all for presenting your points and cases with clarity. And I thank you very much. Thank you. That's